quorum. Would you please call the roll? Present.
Jones.
Here.
Ray. House Jones.
Here.
Kelly. Sly. Star.
Present.
Slafe is excused due to another meeting, and some colleagues will be running late due to other engagements and meetings that they've had to be at. So again, thank you. We have, let me see what we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 9 pieces of legislation that has been requested by the administration to be heard today. We're going to hear those. If there's anyone in attendance from the public who wishes to comment during the public comment portion, please see the clerk to my right, to all your left, indicating we will hear public comment after we are through with the legislation that is before us. I've asked today, before we hear the legislation, I've asked for a briefing by the safety director, the chief, and the administration as to what transpired over the weekend. And I want to thank, again, my colleagues for being here. I want to thank the director, the chief, members of the administration, assistant directors, deputy chiefs for being here at this point. So let me just start it off again. I want to thank all those who are attending today's hearing, especially my colleagues, administration, and viewing public. However, before we address the legislation on the calendar, including one additional piece that has been asked for by the administration, I've asked the director, let me see, make sure. I've asked Director Drummond and Chief Todd to brief us on what had transpired in the city on late Saturday night, early Sunday morning on September 27th and 28th. We all know about the incidents which involved the taking over of the streets at least 7 locations that we all know of, and along I-90 by masked individuals in cars and on foot, threats of violence, shooting off of fireworks, attempted arson, including shutting down of the interstate, damaging vehicles, threats against police officers and citizens, including shooting airsoft pistols at police and in general performing acts that threaten the safety of citizens and motorists and visitors to our city. I want to thank Chief Dorothy Todd for briefing me on Sunday and providing an update in writing to my office on Saturday afternoon. Transparency is critical in dealing with the serious situations that took place this past weekend. Let me say that as a lifelong Clevelander, we are blessed with a magnificent lakefront, medical and cultural institutions second to none, 34 statistical planning areas, which represent the rich cultural, ethnic, and racial tapestry of our city. We have become a destination place for so many. The NCAA Double Women's Final Four was a good example of that destination place. However, we got a big problem. It is called crime and violence, which impacts our city. This past weekend was a culmination of what has been taking place during this past summer in many of our neighborhoods. I wish to thank Mayor Bibb for his comments Monday that he is angry and frustrated and sick of what's going on in our city. However, the question is, what will be done to address the insanity and violence that is impacting the quality of life in this great city by his administration? Will CPD start to identify these individuals and make arrests? This very morning, we want to hear from Director Drummond and Chief Todd as to what actions and initiatives will be taken to address what we saw and experienced this past weekend when individuals from Cincinnati, Columbus, and even Michigan think they can come into Cleveland and link up with our own homegrown criminals to take over major intersections, interstates, and threaten our residents, motorists, and visitors alike. That should tell us a whole lot of where we are at this point in this city. The message and the behavior is that they feel they can do whatever they want in Cleveland, Ohio, with immunity, for they do not believe that the authorities and CPD will take action to curb their behavior. In the street on the east side, they call it getting in your face, with no fear of retribution. So all of us at the table today want to hear what the game plan is and what intelligence was obtained prior to the takeovers, along were any arrests made or vehicles towed, or what were the additional perpetrators identified as of this date. As a member of law enforcement told me yesterday, we are extremely fortunate that no one was hurt or killed, even though I learned this morning that a off-duty Parma police officer was assaulted, especially a member of law enforcement. For when you point a gun at a police officer in Ohio, they have a right to defend themselves and protect citizens. More so, citizens have a right to defend themselves and their families in their vehicles, as this officer told me yesterday. So, Director-in-Chief, the floor is now yours. Please explain to the best of your knowledge at this committee table as to what occurred and what actions and initiatives will be taken to address and prevent further street takeovers and threats to public safety. And again, I want to say this. We are here to work with the director, the administration, the chief, and the command staff. I've asked repeatedly at this table if there's areas of the codified ordinances that need to be toughened up, that need to be improved upon. We continue to ask, tell us what those are. Bring those to us, and we will enact that legislation. In fact, Councilman McCormick and I are working on a piece right now that will be submitted shortly, as well as it pertains to this subject. But again, I want to say that again, because we've said it repeatedly at the table. Your folks are in the street. You know exactly what you can do and what you can't do. We can't arrest. Council members can't arrest. The charter is clear. We cannot. There's things that we just cannot do. We provide the funding. We've done that, and we continue to do that. Gladly provide the funding and support mechanisms. We can't enforce the law. It's up to it starts at the mayor's desk, to the safety director, to the chief and the command staff. So I'm going to stop here before I call upon the director to start. Councilman Starr, you had a question?
No, my question was, I know you mentioned as the start of this committee hearing that we had public comment.
Yes.
I was going to try to see if we can make a recommendation to allow the public comment, because if we're going to read through legislation and some of the public comments may be regarding some of this legislation, I think it would be great to hear them.
Well, some of the comment might be for legislation.
Yeah, so if we hear them.
Okay, we'll find out what the public comment
before we go
requests
through
are.
the
Yes.
legislation part, because it'd be helpful.
Director.
Morning, Safety Chair and
Thank
other
you.
council members. I want to introduce folks at the table here with us. To my far left and your far right is Deputy Chief Sammy Morris at the end, Field Operations. Chief Todd, is, of course, Division of Police, and also Deputy Chief Ali Pillow. And to my right is Assistant Director Nicole Carlton, and to her right is Deputy Chief Jared Shalat. I just have a couple of comments, and I'll turn it over to Chief Todd to answer the questions that you brought up relative to the activities that took place last week, and also a couple weeks before as well, prior. First and foremost, the behavior that was displayed is totally unacceptable. It's criminal in nature, and it's something that we will not tolerate here in the city of Cleveland. Mayor Bibb and his administration already made statements relative to this, and the behavior, again, is totally unacceptable. The officers are aware of that. The officers here in the Division of Police are working constitutionally to hold those responsible for these behaviors and these activities. To the general public, it's important that these type of behaviors, which are criminal in nature, are not glorified. What I see is a glorification from some, not all, from some of this type of behavior to take over an intersection, to set fire by using some accelerant, to shoot off fireworks, to point airsoft rifles or pistols at law enforcement officers, to try to get into vehicles and so forth. All those behaviors are extremely dangerous, and we are very fortunate that no one was killed because of that activity. Those perpetrating the activity and those who were victims of the activity were not hurt or killed. So you're right. This is extremely important to us, and it's important for the public to know, and also you sitting across from us, that the Division of Police is not sitting on their hands. It's important to understand that. I think there's a perception in the public that the Division of Police is not doing anything. The Division of Police is just sitting on their hands. That is farthest from the truth. Chief Todd will articulate very clearly what she knew, what they knew, and the actions that they took, they being the Division of Police, and also the plan going forward. Individuals will be held accountable for their actions. They will be held accountable for their actions. But this has to be a two-way street. We need the assistance from our general public to let us know, the Division of Police know, when these activities are taking place. People know what's going on. If we could just get the information and they can stay anonymous to help us stop this from happening in the first place. So we need the public's help. And with that said, I'll pass it over to Chief Todd.
Good morning, Safety Chair and members of the Safety Committee. I appreciate this opportunity today to update you and the public on the incidents that occurred over the weekend and give you the updates related to that. So what I have here is a synopsis of everything. I will go through all of everything I have, and then we will respond to any questions afterwards. So late Saturday, we received an email from Cincinnati, and the messaging was a takeover scheduled in Cleveland. There was a post that they had located by a group called Cincy Takeovers. And from that, it talked inviting members from Cincinnati and Columbus to come to Cleveland to partake in this event. Part of the post identified, it says, "We will not run from a cop. If you can't stand your ground, this isn't your meet, the meet for you, none of future meets either. Make sure you aren't driving like," and then it was explicit, "from spot to spot. We are all going to the same places. Spots will be dropped on the story. Do not blow up our DMs asking for the spots." So this was all through social media that these communications were being posted. It says, "Block the explicit cops until all sliders left the pit trying to go to the next location. Stay out of media's way. If you see someone with a camera, just back up and let them get their footage of us." So a big part of this is about capturing the, getting the attention that they're looking for from the media and getting this out to social media. So the post listed as an initial gathering location in Columbus. We received this information and we immediately began coordinating our resources and trying to gather additional information. We contacted Columbus PD. We identified to them a location we had that they would be potentially gathering. Columbus sent their resources to that location, and no one showed up at that particular location. Our Fusion Center, along with the Fusion Center in Cincinnati, were gathering as much information as they could, along with our real-time crime center. We made notifications to the Ohio State Highway Patrol and other surrounding agencies and asked for them to monitor for any incoming traffic or large groups of vehicles traveling to the Cleveland area. We put together a detail of our officers to monitor this activity. We also made notification to all of our 5 police districts to let them know to monitor any hotspot locations in their particular districts where we know that these gatherings sometime occur, and to also look out for large groups of vehicles traveling into the area. Our chopper was up, also looking and monitoring for this activity. At approximately 11:30 p.m. was when we saw our first gathering in the area of East 55th and Woodland. Officers responded to that location. A short time later, at 11:37 p.m., we were notified of an additional gathering at Lee and Miles. So as you see these locations as they popped up, they weren't going to just one particular location at a time. They were hitting multiple neighborhoods, multiple streets on different sides of the city, which does split up our resources when that happens. Just after midnight, we were notified about an individual having an airsoft gun and shooting them at our officers. One of our officers was struck twice with an airsoft gun, but was not injured. Just after 1 a.m., we were notified about a group that was gathering in the 2nd District of West 65th, and a second group in the area of West 25th and Lorraine. We received multiple calls from different areas in the city, most of those being in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th District, for groups taking over various intersections. The final area was I-90 West at West 14th, just around 4 a.m. There was about 20 vehicles on the freeway that were blocking all lanes of traffic, shooting off fireworks, attempting to light fires on the freeway, and pointing firearms at citizens who were confronting them. We gathered our resources on this final portion when the freeway was shut down with the assistance of the State Highway Patrol and other outside agencies. And what we had to weigh in that factor was the location that they were at. There was no exit ramp between where we would enter and where we would get to that group. We had to make sure that we had a safe plan to get the officers up there and to get the citizens free from that area. When the officers were planning to enter the on-ramp, State Highway Patrol was on the other side of the freeway monitoring and advised us that the group had dispersed. So at that point, all vehicles fled in different areas and the event ended for the evening. So throughout this incident, we saw fireworks that were being displayed, attempts to light fire throughout the city. Fortunately, the weather prevented that from happening. The airsoft guns, at one point, they were jumping on zone cars. Firearms were displayed at the officers as well as citizens. The off-duty Parma officer was assaulted. Citizens were threatened. And of course, the activity of the spinning of the tires in the intersection that was being filmed. First, I want to thank our men and women for the outstanding work breaking up these meets. The biggest part of this is, we're trying to stop the activity, and the aftermath is the investigation. I also want to thank our partner agencies who came out to provide assistance to our men and women. Not everyone will understand our actions or the perception of inactions. I want to be clear that policing is not what you see on TV. Our members are faced with life and death situations that they are required to balance on what laws are being broken, what actions can they legally take, and what policy is in place for them to follow. To sit back and judge after the fact is easy. We look at the videos after the fact and can tell what they should have done, what they could have done better. But to be faced with this head-on in real time is extremely challenging. Every action or inaction taken by police will always be judged, not only by their superiors, by the media, by the community, and also we have to answer to the DOJ monitors, CPC, and even City Council. We by far are not perfect, but we do our best to balance community safety and officer safety. And as for opinions on how this should be handled, we must balance how we constitutionally, within our force guidelines, address these issues while protecting the community, participants, and officers. And I know that's a strong word about protecting the participants. Throughout the last few days, I've received numerous emails from the community. Some of those emails were, why didn't the officers shoot the individuals? Why didn't they ram their cars? Why didn't they do, a lot of things that people, their perception is how we should handle it, but that is not what constitutional policing is made up of. So currently, there are laws in the city addressing some of these violations. 43308 is about trick or stunt riding prohibited. And that right now is an M2 violation, which is a misdemeanor of the 2nd degree. Another item is street racing prohibited, 43707. Now, this is something that our officers have been writing citations for the past 2 years, and identifies this particular behavior. House Bill 56 is effective later in October, which increases the penalties for these crimes. So not only are the misdemeanors, but it also gives the opportunity that there is license suspensions for 30 days to 3 years. So as we probably know that this is happening throughout the country, and it's glorified on social media. There's been similar incidents in Indianapolis, September 14th through the 16th. And the situation in Indianapolis, lighter fluid-filled bottles were thrown at responding officers, and baseball bats were taken to their zone cars. In Philadelphia, September 22nd, baseball bats were used to destroy police cars as well. In those incidents, officers were hurt when responding to these incidents. What we have been doing is working on the smaller scale of the complaints that we've been receiving throughout the city with the smaller takeovers, as we've been researching what are best practices, how are other cities handling similar situations, and what proactive measures we can take. One of the things that we have been looking at is something that Kansas City has done where they do street milling. And what they do with that is they mill portions of larger intersections to prevent this type of activity. And what it does is if there's some type of, stunt driving in that area, it would disable the vehicle because the tires couldn't take the impact of those, the milling in the road. We're also working on, what we can do shorter term. Is it putting some type of obstruction, a metal plate or something like that inside these intersections so that this activity might be deterred? Also is using potentially police or larger city vehicles to block some of these locations. We've also had conversations with larger parking lot owners about some proactive measures that they can take. When you look at where they gather for these locations when it's not on a city street, it's locations that have large unobstructed parking lots. And when I say unobstructed, there's no cart returns, there's no parking blocks, there's nothing that stops this activity. We've made recommendations to several of those parking lot owners to add something that would prevent this activity. Going forward, and what we have been doing is we do research social media. One of the things we do find are these sites are secured and locked to the participants. So the only measures that we have are open source available social media platforms. So that means that somebody would have to be, they would not have to have a blocked site for us to be able to review the activity or what they're posting out there. We've been responding actively to these incidents throughout the city, especially on the smaller scale. We have currently put together, after this weekend's incidents, a task force, which is part of each police district, our traffic unit, fire arson, our gang impact unit, and several local partner agencies. The goal for this is to gather all of the investigations that we have and compile shared data. Our hope is that as a whole community, and not just the city of Cleveland, that we'll be able to, share this information and bring a bigger case against the participants in this. We need to make sure as a police, as the division of police, that we're better socializing what we do. And I know that that is, one of the things that we always seem to miss the mark on in policing, and it results in, the perception of inaction. So I am committed to making sure the council and the community and the media are updated throughout this investigation so that you know of the work that we're doing, that you know when warrants are issued, and you know that this behavior is being addressed. Just to talk a little bit about what happened the weekend prior in the area of West 25th and Lorraine, where a fire was lit and the cars were, actively taking over that intersection. We have issued warrants for 3 individuals related to that. We identified them, 2 adults and a juvenile, where we are currently actively pursuing to arrest those individuals. Our goal is to hold all participants, those in the vehicles and those standing in the roadways who are filming it or just observing, responsible for these actions. These charges can range anywhere from a minor traffic offense all the way up to a felony crime with this. As far as the takeover that occurred this past weekend, we've identified many persons of interest. We have to look at this case now as a bigger picture and look at how do we investigate this as a whole as opposed to the individual bad actors. So those are our next steps, and my commitment is to make sure that you are all updated on this so that you have a clear understanding that we are not just sitting back and doing nothing with this. This is a priority for the Division of Police. This is a priority for the city and for the mayor. Thank you.
And I thank you, Chief, for your broad explanation as to what you have uncovered and what you have determined took place. If you would just go back briefly to the locations that we're aware of where this took place. We had, the first was East 55th in Euclid.
I have a whole list for you.
Okay.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure because second was Lee and Miles. Then we had West 65th. Then what after West 65th again?
So I have to, the order may not be accurate
Yes.
when I identify all the different locations
Yes.
because we did, we did receive approximately 100 different calls for service Saturday night.
Okay.
So the areas in the 2nd district we identified were Scranton and Carter,
Wait a minute. Okay, Scranton. And Carter. Okay.
West 25th and Lorraine,
West 25th and Lorraine.
Steelyard Commons.
Wait a minute, Lorraine. And that would be the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
And of course, the final location which was the Interbelt Bridge.
That's West 14th.
Yeah, I-90 west to West 14th.
Okay.
And the 3rd district, East 55th and Woodland,
Okay, East 55th in Woodland. Okay.
East 105th and MLK,
Wait a minute, Woodland. Okay. 105th and,
MLK,
okay,
East 105th and Park, same area over there.
yes,
Quincy and Opportunity Corridor,
okay.
East 105th and Superior,
And you can supply those to us?
yep, East 93rd and Opportunity Corridor,
Yeah,
and then going into the 4th district, 66 and Harvard, Kinsman and Opportunity Corridor, Lee and Harvard, East 122nd and Larchmere, East 93rd and Opportunity Corridor, 68th and Broadway.
so it was much broader than we had originally been aware of. So you would please provide those locations to us. Just a couple other points. The Fusion Center, you indicated you were given, how well in advance, you mentioned the Cincinnati on social media, how much in advance notice did you actually have?
Late Saturday afternoon.
Late Saturday afternoon, okay. And at that point, obviously, you didn't have the locations of where they were coming to, correct? No,
No, sir.
okay. So at that point, late Saturday afternoon, then what actions were taken? You indicated you notified all 5 districts.
So we received the notification, which, as I mentioned, was just something Cincinnati had located and shared
Yes.
with us. So we immediately had our Fusion Center and our Real-Time Crime Center and our detectives start looking at this information to see if they can find anything additional. We made notifications to State Highway Patrol,
Okay.
our partner agencies, our 5 police districts, and brought a detail in as well to cover this potential event.
Okay.
And as you know, it was raining.
Yes.
And, we didn't know, is this a valid, there's things that are posted continuously on social media. We didn't
Okay.
know the validity of it. And coming into it kind of late into the game, we took this serious and immediately took action.
Was this like a caravan? Was this an identifiable group coming up on 71?
I can tell you, we received no notification until they were here. So there was no one saw them coming. We had no notification that they saw a large caravan of vehicles. One of the posts that they had made was advising each other to not drive erratically when they were going to these
Okay.
locations. So if it's just everyday vehicle travel, that's all they're saying. One of the items I did omit was the fact that they do take their license plates off of their vehicles when these activities happen. So they will take the license plate off prior to make it harder to identify the vehicles involved.
You indicated you're looking at all avenues and all potential criminal acts. One of the reoccurring recommendations, or from so many officers that have called me, is the issue of aggravated riot. Is that being explored?
So I can tell you with, yes, absolutely, 100% that is what
Okay.
we're looking at because it fits the definition of the crime. And when we're going back to what occurred on West 25th, that's aggravated arson that the warrants were issued for.
Okay, so aggravated riot and arson. Okay. Go back to the sections within the codified ordinance. You mentioned 437.07. What was the other section again?
I'm sorry, 43307
433.07.
and 43308.
433.08. So those are the two sections. And your team is looking at the possibility of what we can do to enhance those?
So there is currently a House bill that is enhancing the penalties
Yep.
for those crimes that
We're aware
comes
of
in
that.
later this month.
Yeah, we have that. We have that information, and we're looking at that as well, because again, we know here, we cannot increase penalties above the state.
Correct.
So that's something we're looking at as well, what we can do to mirror or augment what's taking place on the state level. So again, as I want to say, if there's any other areas that you think we need to collectively partner on enhancing something that we've never had to consider before, again, I would ask your team to take a look at that and make recommendations to us. We'll gladly, immediately act upon those recommendations.
Can I just
Yes.
make one more, just based on your question about the aggravated rioting?
Yes.
That goes to the fact that this is more than a traffic offense. When individuals decide to gather in large groups or coordinate large groups to create criminal activity and this type of behavior, that's where your felony level crimes come from. Just doing this, it's one thing with the street racing or the stunt trick driving that they're completing, which might be just a traffic offense. But when you're organizing it and you're doing all of these other things, those are felonies. Those are well beyond just, having a little fun in the street. This is really serious crimes that are being committed.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to open it up. Yes.
On that point,
Yes, Mr. President, on that point.
Since there are multiple felonies taking place and multiple things being coordinated and organized, can this be charged as a RICO case?
I don't want to comment on that right now, but that's something we're looking at. I don't want to go too much further at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start
Point
the
it. I have a.
Excuse me.
Just a.
What point?
Yes, a question.
Yeah.
Chair, you indicated that we cannot provide any stiffer penalties beyond what is in the state. Where is that in writing? Where is that?
I would have to get the law department. That's what we've always been told. We cannot increase penalties above the state.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think being told something and actually
Yeah.
knowing in writing,
Yeah.
as I've been exploring just conversations with those who, I would really would want to see that constitutionally.
Okay, and we'll make that
based on
request.
our things.
We'll make that request through staff and through the law director. We can have those specific sections of state statute.
On the point, Mr. Chairman, with charges.
Pardon?
On the point of penalties and charges.
Yes.
You know, I guess my suggestion would be, and I'm not sure if we
Yeah, I
have
got
the
you.
capacity and ability for those who have planned, structured, organized this from Cincinnati, these huge, massive takeovers, and the enormity of our city to try to deal with all of this happening at multiple site locations. Can we, for those who are the organizers, penalize them for the cost that it took the city to deal with this in terms of manpower? Do we have that capacity, Mr. Chairman, to the chief to be able to do that?
And then I'll put you down, Councilman Jones.
So through the chair to the council member, that would be up to the court.
Okay, thank you. The protocol, we're going to work in this protocol. The council president's here, then the vice chair, then I have Councilman Starr. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for pulling this together. This is extremely important. Many of the citizens of this city are pissed. Many people in this city started calling me. I happen to live right down the street from 122nd and Larchmere. This was unacceptable. People are angry. People want to see accountability, and people want to understand why and how this has happened. Our job is to ask questions. I will tell everybody that I do understand that the men and women of the Cleveland Division of Police and all of the safety forces have a challenging job. However, our citizens deserve better. Before I go any further, I have to ask, is the officer okay, and are the citizens that were harmed doing okay right now?
Whoever can answer. Whoever can answer.
Through the chair to the council president, yes, the officer is okay. There was also a University Circle police officer that was struck with the appellate as well, who's okay. And the Parma off-duty was treated by EMS and released.
At some point in time, I would like to personally reach out to make sure that we offer our support for the officers that risk themselves during this process. So
Thank you.
please keep that in mind. A couple of questions that I have, and I know you said that the helicopters were up in the air, but I believe council, and I want to start this by saying, and I know Councilman Polinsky says this all the time, we do not deploy resources as council. We have 3 roles that are primary roles as council. That is set the budget, make sure that we provide oversight, and do policy, to put policy in place to deal with that. In looking at that, there were drones that council supported, and I believe there were 9 drones. Were the drones up in the air, or do we have the drones working yet so that we can start to utilize those kind of tools?
Director.
And if we could we please keep the questions like really quick, because I have a few questions I have to get through, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Council President Griffin, we do have drones in our possession. We're in the process of completing our draft policy. Once that's complete, we'll get the drones up as a pilot. So they were not in the air on the day last week, but our chopper was up.
Okay, thank you.
Can I also,
Chief.
through the chair to the council president, as the director stated, we are working for the piloting phase of that. We are in the final stages of training our members on the particular platform that this drones are equipped for. As soon as that training is completed, you know, we have drone operators. As soon as that training is completed, those will be operational.
But just on that point, as you're well aware, Director and Chief, we passed that legislation 2 years ago for the drones.
Understood.
So we acted appropriately, we acted expeditiously, and there's great frustration on this side of the table that we want to see those up, because that would have been very helpful, not only in this case, but in other cases that we've been dealing with. So again, I can't stress enough the need to move forward on that. Mr. President?
Yes, along that line of questioning, do we need more tools? Do we need tools like Star Chaser, tracking devices? Do we need spikes? I heard you talk about hardening and providing some of the road fixes. What else do we need to do in order to mitigate these kind of crises from the future?
Through the chair to Council President Griffin, I'll make some comments. I'm sure Chief Todd will chime in as well. The Division of Police is looking at all best practices throughout the United States, talking with different police departments that's encountering the same issues. we want to utilize whatever tools we can and utilize it in a constitutional manner to help us deal with this and combat this and hopefully stop this outrageous behavior taking place in our city and any other city for that matter. So we will look at all tools that, again, that we can utilize for the Division of Police and the men and women to effectively do their jobs. But again, we're going to make sure that when we're doing it, it's going to be constitutional as well. Chief?
Thank you, Director. So through the chair to the council president, we've looked at similar platforms that you're talking about with the GPS deployment, things like that. We're trying to figure out what is best for the division. You know, we're using all the tools that we currently have as far as like the spike strips. The Division of Police currently does not utilize spike strips. You know, this is something that we did talk about. You know, we are trying to determine, as much as you are, how best we can combat this. You know, we're looking at all other agencies and what they are finding as successful measures in addressing this. So that is something that we will look at. We will look at everything that is available to address these situations. And we have to look at best practices.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Through the chair, staying on the line of technology, Fusion Center, cameras on every corner, real-time crime center, license plate readers. We have an abundance of technology. Do we have the personnel to be able to follow up on the technology?
So,
Chief.
through the chair to the council president, our real-time crime center was capturing all the video related to this. Our detectives, the real-time crime center, are analyzing everything. They're pulling the vehicle information, the faces. They're using all of that information, the technology that we have as part of this investigation. The plate readers, what we're trying to do is backtrack to match the vehicles involved to at what point they took the plates off the vehicles. So we are doing a lot of backtracking work, but we have set up a task force that this is all they are focusing on.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll move to personnel. Were all of the detective bureaus active that evening? Or were the detective bureaus inactive and deployed to do basic patrol?
Whoever can answer.
So through the chair to the council president, we called in personnel when we found out about this event to help us, you know, to cover this event. We had on-duty detective bureaus who were working. We're not finding that we're using our detective staffing in the patrol function. We're doing very well with maintaining our car plan without having to, you know, mandate outside resources. So the detectives who are working this were not on the patrol function.
So just to make sure I get clarification, the detectives that were working this case were not involved in the patrol function. Help me clarify what that means, if you could, please. Thank you, sir.
Yes, so to clarify, they were, we had detectives who were in their, we have our violent crime detectives. So they're plainclothes in, you know, usually unmarked vehicles. They were out there during this because this is their regular on-duty time. So they were active participants as far as addressing this. They weren't, you know, so that's where I think my confusion's coming from a little bit. We had our patrol, our regular patrol cars that were actively involved in this, as well as our specialized units, which are detectives that are in plain clothes and unmarked vehicles.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
If
where
I can
I'm going
jump,
with this
if I can
is,
chime
if
in,
you
I know
could,
you,
please,
your
yes.
time is
Director.
limited, and Chief Todd's explained it really precisely. It's important to understand that we have specialized units or sports sections in each of the districts. That includes the CSU's units, the vice unit, plainclothes, and then the detective units and so forth. And as Chief Todd just articulated, detective units generally follow up on crimes, but when these situations come up, we have them involved in the investigative portion of these. Also, you have the violent crime detectives, which is an arm to the detective bureau and so forth. Those individuals were actively involved, as well as the vice units were working. They were actively involved in part of this detail to make sure that we can respond accordingly to this issue.
So, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that I'm verifying.
Yes.
No detective units were inactive during this event.
So through the chair to the council president, we do have people who are off of work that day. I'm not going to say that every single of the 5 districts was working, their detective units were working at that time, no.
Okay.
We do have active ones that were on duty, but because the way our scheduling works, we have, we make sure we have coverage throughout the city. And, some people are on their off days, and some, so it varies on which districts were on and off duty.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked that question is because I know that we supported the Pittman scheduling, I believe that's what it's called, and the 12-hour shifts and days and everything else. And we hear things as council. I don't go off of rumors and innuendo, but there have been allegations that many of the detectives were pulled off to do basic patrol. And that's the reason I'm asking that question, to make sure that I get clarification. And you're telling me that's not the case?
No. So through the chair to the council president, that's not the case.
Okay.
We're not, that is not the case. And the detective units are not on that Pittman schedule. They're on regular 8-hour shifts.
Okay, thank you. Next thing I want to make sure that I ask is, have we reached out to the FBI, or have our detective units and other folks looked at embedding personnel in these operations? They're not hard to find. All you have to do is watch the Cleveland Remembrance page, and they can tell you exactly where everybody's going to be at. Why don't we have any intelligence-led policing embedded in some of these operations?
So through the chair to the council president, normally when these takeovers were happening, they were being handled on the individual district. So if it was something that happened in D2, the D2 detectives were handling this. Because this is a citywide issue, especially with this takeover, we've tasked our Bureau of Special Services, which is our gang impact unit, who work hand in hand with our federal partners. Those are our task force officers. They are the leads on this investigation, and they are going to take the resources they have with their partners, whether that be the FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals. They're all coordinating with those resources for this investigation.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll just close
Yes,
by
sir.
saying this so that everybody else can ask more questions. We spent a lot of time as council people in hot church basements this summer. We've gotten several calls. People have pulled us out of our house at 2 o'clock in the morning to deal with that, even to the point where I've talked to you and Safety Director Drummond, as well as Commander Valentino, and witnessed this. And a lot of these folks are emboldened, and they don't fear anything. And we need to hold all of the folks accountable. I would tell you that this isn't just this weekend. Buckeye Plaza, Lee Harvard Plaza, several streets, Mara. I'm still not sure if we got anybody who did that chandelier spin out, and if we got any arrests for that. This is not just a one-time, one-off occurrence. What have we done? And I heard the mayor say yesterday about a task force. That's the first time that I've heard about that. But what are we doing to deal with these street takeovers? I'm happy that homicide is down. I'm happy that some of the other statistics are down, because quite frankly, they're down across the country. But what are we doing with some of this nuisance crime, where these folks have a reckless disregard, stopping ambulances, charging people to get through? What are we doing to hold people accountable? I understand and I support completely constitutional policing. However, our citizens are irate. What are we doing to deal with this lawlessness in order to make sure that we have a plan? Because I will tell you that I have multiple citizens, multiple businesses, multiple stakeholders that said, Blaine, we're leaving. And that's unacceptable. We have to have a plan. What body are we putting in place in order to mitigate this crisis from happening? Because we've been dealing with it in Buckeye Plaza, Lee Harvard, Mara, Raymond, all over the city all summer, where they have just blatantly taken over streets, plazas, private property. What are we doing? What's the strategy?
The Director, Chief.
So through the chair to the council president, I completely hear you. And I think these are very fair questions, and I know the community is outraged, rightfully so. I can tell you that we as a division will do better about communicating what we've done and what we're doing. I think that is where we always miss the mark, because we make arrests, we write citations, we tow vehicles, and we never tell that story. You know, we just go about our police business, you know, after these incidents happen, and we don't talk about it. So we will make sure that you have that information. We will make sure that the community has that information, because it's only fair to know what is going on and how this is being addressed.
Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Chair, the one group that's not at the table, or the two groups that are not at the table that we really need to be engaging, and hopefully we'll have a follow-up conversation with them, are the prosecutors,
Right.
as well as the judges. And I think that we need to vigilantly be going to these court hearings when they do happen, to make sure that they don't just get a pass, and that they're held accountable. And I love what Councilman Joe Jones said about making sure that we also go after them for some of the damages that they're doing to some of these properties. You know, this, once again, is not just a one-off. This is something that's been happening multiple times this year, and it's criminal. It's not just, you know, joyful, youthful gatherings. They're pointing guns at people. I'm just as concerned about these folks and these bad actors, because they're going to run into the wrong person.
That's right.
And the wrong person is not going to wait for the police. The wrong person is going to create a major melee, and we're going to have a worse situation, because there's going to be back and forth, and it will escalate into major gun battles. That is what we're headed to if we don't get ahead of this. I've already talked to several people, because one of the privileges of being a council person, you don't just get to stay in the boardroom, you get to stay in the streets. And people are armed to the hilt, and people are getting to a point where they don't feel that we, and I want to say we, because I take my job seriously, are doing enough to protect them. And when they start taking things in their own hands, squirting water guns at people when they're walking down the street, shooting people with pellets, charging people to get through, they're going to run into somebody who is not as patient and who is not as accepting, and it's going to turn into a very bad situation. I'm not trying to predict anything. I hope to God it doesn't happen, but it's that level of frustration that most of the residents in this city have right now. And once again, these are people who are just everyday citizens, because only a small portion of our city is driving a large portion of the crime. So regular citizens are now to the point where they don't feel that government or society or systems are doing enough to protect them. So once again, I respect and honor the men and women of this division. I understand that they have a lot of challenges, but the people of this community deserve better, and we all need to step up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry, I have 15. Okay, Mr. President, you were right. You had 4 seconds left. Okay, I just wanted, just before I call upon Councilman Jones, and again, I would ask all my colleagues to be mindful of the time each one is allotted. But you touched about emails and phone calls. You have no idea what members have gotten since Saturday night, early Sunday morning. And we've heard you want to talk about, you know, we've had about why aren't you using snow plows? Why aren't you using the hoses on the fire trucks? Douse them down. I mean, I've heard everything that I can think of under the sun. And then some of my colleagues that were not here has also other meetings have sent in information as well. Was any other department, before I call upon Councilman Joe, was any other department engaged in this besides the Division of Police? Any other city division?
Any other city division?
Yeah.
So fire arson was active
Okay.
in the investigations we had
Okay.
where the fires were lit.
Okay, okay. And then you have obviously been talking to the police prosecutor as well.
Yes,
The
we've
police-
been in constant contact with
Okay.
Chief Prosecutor Jordan.
Thank you. Councilman Jones?
Thank you,
your
Mr.
time.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to start out, I heard all of the testimony, and the whole proposition started out with accountability systems that are in place for the police officers, and then we talked about the various different locations that were targeted in this takeover. And I asked the comment, Mr. Chairman, how are we responding as it relates to charging costs to those perpetrators who are involved with this. And the response was the courts. And I know that here in the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, that, you know, if our fire department or EMS has to perform a service within our municipal boundaries, we charge a cost. I think it's incumbent upon us, Mr. Chairman, to put a new rule in place, and I look forward to working with the president of Cleveland City Council, because I think the president hit a number of points on the nail. And one of those is just the frustration that's boiling up within the citizens of the city of Cleveland. So I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, to the president that, number one, we look at charging people who come into our city with that foolishness, all the cost that our city has incurred in manpower, resources, our communication systems, and our various different partners. I think that's important when people get to realize that they're going to be charged with maybe $200,000 or $300,000, or if in this situation it was $1 million to deal with the issue, for an example, that they're going to be charged and they're going to have to pay this. I think that they're going to think another term we're looking at trying to bring this nonsense into our city. So that's the first thing, Mr. Chairman, in terms of possible ways and means of solutions. Can we look into that, Mr. Chairman, to the president?
We have staff here, we'll take that down. Staff, please record that. Thank you, Councilman.
And then solution-oriented, because see, that's where we are, right? We can talk about these issues all day long, but if we don't have some kind of real fundamental action that will be moving towards the direction to deal with the situation, we'll be back at this table with another takeover, or we'll be dealing back at this table with something that has tragically happened because we haven't dealt with it in an appropriate response, I think is important. And Mr. Chairman, and let me just say this in the same spirit of the president of Cleveland City Council, Blaine Griffin, and he's right. The frustration has hit to an all-time high. Citizens, one of the biggest issues that I constantly hear a lot is visibility. Seeing police officers patrolling the neighborhoods and the communities. And they want to be able to see that in their neighborhoods and their communities that we have people who are actively out there patrolling the neighborhood and patrolling the community. So the question I would have, Mr. Chairman, is on any given day, how many cars are patrolling in the city of Cleveland?
Chief.
So through the chair to the council, Councilman Jones, I can get that for you. Each police district has a car plan that they are to maintain. So that is that they have to maintain that at 100% through each shift that they have. We can get that specific breakdown to you because it's different per district and it's based on crime data.
And Mr. Chairman, one of the solutions I've constantly brought to this table, and it's just unfortunately from one administration to the next administration, has fallen on deaf ears, is a situation that could resolve this. They pick on the city of Cleveland because we don't have any traffic enforcement. I'm dealing with issues and the jobs that we have as council members here. I'm dealing with subjects and issues that I shouldn't even be dealing with. But if we had traffic enforcement, we can really make a powerful, profound impact. For an example, we have vehicles speeding. We have people who don't have driver's license. They don't have driver's license or insurance. They don't have driver's license, insurance, and they're driving in stolen cars. And they're moving throughout our neighborhoods unabated. And we don't have that force that's there to pull these people over like we, at one point in time in the city of Cleveland, was able to do so in our various different respective territories. So I suggested, Mr. Chairman, at one point we have the same, and this council approved this, for University Circle, with allowing them to be able to have their systems and car plans in place. And we have enough resources in the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, with what we already exist in terms of having, to have 4 police cars patrolling our neighborhoods. And each ward should have at least 2 one-man car patrolling our community. If we're doing that, then we will cut down on all the problems and issues that we're having in our streets. At the same time, we'll increase our visibilities in terms of our neighborhood, and we make our citizens feel safe. But if you don't have no one pulling people over, And I had someone complaining to me, Mr. Chairman, in one of the stores. I went into the store and the gentleman came up to me and he says, he was very angry and he was mad. And he said to me, he says, "You're the reason why I got a ticket." And so I looked at him and I said, "Oh." He says, "Yeah, the police officer who pulled me over said, I'm in your neighborhood now because you were upset about the traffic and I got a ticket." I said, "Listen, sir, I don't mean no disrespect, but we have vehicles running over properties, running into people's homes, tearing up our fences, tearing up our business districts. We have never seen the flipping of over cars. Every time I go out into my neighborhood on my main streets, like Lee and Harvard and Lee and Miles, I see some kind of car wreck that has happened, and they haven't even cleaned it up. We have debris that are happening consistently. You can go down any street in the city of Cleveland and see bumpers and side pieces and panels and glass all over the place. And one of the reasons why these people are riding so crazy in our neighborhoods because there is nothing there to prevent them and there's nothing there to stop them. So if we want to really get ahead of really seriously taking some moves to really fundamentally deal with this issue, then we need to get traffic enforcement on our streets. And we need to make that a priority. If we make that a priority, that's going to be a win-win situation. It sets the tone that you're not going to come into our community, into our city, and do whatever you want to do. You're going to be checked. And so sometimes government has to check people who are coming into the neighborhoods to be disruptive. And one of the ways to do that is doing the job of traffic enforcement. And we have failed at traffic enforcement. If I asked you how many tickets you have written, you probably wouldn't be able to tell me. And there was a time when I would ask the chief of the police department, when then Mayor Mike White was the mayor of the city of Cleveland, how many tickets have been written in the city of Cleveland. And it was over 120-some thousand tickets in an annual year that was written. That was great traffic enforcement. So I looked at the gentleman, I said to the gentleman, "Mr. Chairman," I said, "if you got a ticket in the city of Cleveland, then you deserved it. You deserve to have that ticket if you got a ticket from a Cleveland police officer in the city of Cleveland. And I'm sorry you got the ticket, but when you come into our community and our city, slow down, please. Please slow down. Please understand it's more than just you on the road." And I can't, Mr. Chairman, be a police officer. You heard the president of Cleveland City Council talked about the fact that, you know, getting calls at 2 o'clock in the morning time. We have allocated the resources to our various different departments, you being one of them. That's your responsibility and job. It's not my responsibility. But the citizens want to know that the elected officials care, so they call us. And so now I've gotten into this thing where I tell them, please call the police first. Please give the police a call. And then if you haven't seen or saw or heard anything, call me and I'll be out to take a look. Or I'll try to assist. So what is your take, Mr. Chairman, to the chief and to the safety director on really putting a real plan together to knock out 3 birds with 1 stone? The first one is you increase high visibility in the neighborhood. That's a win because the citizens want to see that. And then the second thing you do, you make the neighborhood safe. You gather intelligence because you're pulling people over who are driving in our cities, who don't have driver's license, they don't have insurance, and they're driving in stolen cars. And then 3, you set the tone that you can't come over into our city and have this foolishness happen. There's a reason they're picking on the city of Cleveland. They're picking on it because we don't have the ability and the capacity and traffic enforcement to prevent these things. And if we had proper, strong traffic enforcement cars in every single ward, like it is in Shaker, everyone knows. And they're not going to go over next door and pull that in Shaker. Everyone knows that when you go up Lee Road into Shaker, you do what?
Slow down.
Slow down. Why? Because you're going to get a ticket? So we should be out there writing tickets. We should be doing the job that we're being paid to do. And we have to be able to enforce this. We just do that one move, Mr. President, and I submit to my colleagues who are sitting at the table and to the administration that it will make a profound and powerful impact. And we just haven't done it right. And when we did do it, we didn't have the same kind of crime issues and statistics. During that particular period of time, we were at the all-time lowest crime rates that we've ever seen in this city. And you can go back and pull the record. and see that at the end of the 1990s coming into about 2002, 2003. So I suggest, Mr. Chairman, the easy fix here would be traffic enforcement. And I'm willing to sit down with anyone to talk about what that strategy and what that plan should be. But if we work the same kind of strategy and plan that they have in University Circle to every single neighborhood that has their own traffic enforcement, have their own police officers stay in the neighborhood, they don't go to the left, they don't go to the right, then they'll know where the dope man Mike's house is at. They'll have a familiarity with the community, and they'll be more efficient and effective because then they have a relationship with the people in the community and the neighborhoods, in the stores and the shops. But right now, Mr. Chairman, ending it at disclosure here,
Yes.
the impact has been so great for our neighborhood that it's impacting our commerce. There are business owners who are talking about we may need to leave. There is Metro Health that feels unsafe and secure, and they have abandoned their facility in our Lee Harbor Shopping Plaza. So we have a number of major issues that are impacting the quality of life, not only for the residents, but are having a negative impact on the commerce of the city of Cleveland. We can't slow this down. We need traffic enforcement now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman, for keeping time. You had 3 minutes left. Before I call upon Councilman Starr, I just want to say this. The director and the chief understand council wants traffic enforcement in the city. They've heard that loud and clear. I had that discussion this week with the chief, and I appreciate her listening. Council wants traffic enforcement. And I don't care who they're giving tickets to. Not only would you add on to what you said, but not only that, but we're getting contraband in those cars as well. We're getting drugs and guns when they do traffic enforcement. So the director and the chief knows that city council wants traffic enforcement in the city. Councilman Starr, time is yours.
Thank you. Can I have all the Councilman Joe Jones' time as well?
Mr. Chairman,
No, you're not giving them. Okay.
No, just lighten the room a little bit. I see this is a very important topic that we have, and I definitely want to say I commend Chief Dorothy Todd for the work that you do. Like I said, I always bring up the fact that she has taught me about policing and different strategy on how to get things done. But one of the things that is hard for us as council members is dealing with the reality. So to the chair, to safety director, Drummond, I know he mentioned earlier about crime and homicides down, but the reality that we live in, a lot of folks don't feel the same way. I know we do press conferences. I know we talk about this data. I'm good with data. Now, what I mean by that is you can get data and you can present it in a certain way to make it compelling, but that does not stop the fact that you hear gunshots every night. It does not count the fact that we know loved ones who have been victims of gun violence, who have been killed. So when people see that in our city, hey, violence is down, and all they know is they going to funerals. That became something that is a norm almost in most of our cities. So I do commend the work that we've done with the homicide, because that is fact. If it's down, it's down. But one of the things that I have a biggest question that I definitely want to ask through the chair to the table is, how many patrol officers does CPD have as of today, patrol officers?
To the chair, we'll get information. I'm sure Chief Todd will have that information. You're talking about patrol officers, period, or not just all the members of Division of Police, but
The patrol officers.
We'll get that particular information for you.
And through the chair, on top of that question, in addition, how many police officers do we have together, so I can see the breakdown of who's patrolling versus who's not in different units? Because I know over the last couple of years, I've always been one of the ones who believe in this method. If I'm short-staffed, that means everybody chip in. Everyone has to do something. If we need traffic enforcement, we can't rely on a 300 or 400 estimate of officers that are on patrol assignment. That means detectives got to patrol. That means deputy chiefs got to patrol. Everyone got to patrol so we can be able to bring that presence. See, number of the things that I believe the problem that we have in the city is nobody believes the police is here. And one of the ways that I believe that, because when we talked in Finance Committee with Council President's Committee, I believe September 16th, I asked a question about from 3rd and 4th District, from between 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., how many patrol officers do we have on staff in 3rd and 14th district? And I received that information, and it shows that 3rd district have 14 patrol officers, and then they have 7, I don't know what DSU stands for,
Downtown Services Unit.
Downtown Services Unit officers, and then 4th district have 18 patrol officers. So if we only have 32 plus 7 is 39, if we have 39 patrol units between those hours of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., I guess street racers would be able to come into certain areas, catch us blind spotted because we don't have enough officers patrolling during that time, which can create what we've seen here. So what I'm saying is we have to take the gloves off. One of the things that my biggest frustration with this job is we always scream at policy, but we write policies, we edit policies, we change policies, and there's certain things that you can do. When I was growing up, not too long ago, the police, well, you didn't want to deal with the police. It was a presence, not just from the standpoint, it was a point where we was like, that's CMHA, oh, that's Cleveland. We felt that. But right now, these people do not feel that because they don't see the presence all the time. And that's what we have to get back. Community policing is still a thing, but in Cleveland, it's almost sometimes not there. Now, we have some districts that do a great job. I definitely always big up 3rd district. Anytime I call them, reach out to them, Commander Tucker, all of them do a great job. Obviously, Chief Dorothy Todd set that precedent, and that's there, and I understand what we're trying to do. But one of the things we have to do, that traffic enforcement that Councilman Joe Jones and Council President brought up is big. It is big. It's not just something that we're saying. If I do not feel like nothing's going to happen to me, I'm going to do it. If nobody's watching me, I'm going to speed. If nobody's ticketing me, I'm going to continue to do that. And that's the difference between when you hit Ridge Road and going into Palmer, and you're going through that 2-mile radius where it says 25 miles per hour, no matter what time of day, you're going to see a police officer. Car, rather, and they're ticketing. But we have to take that same type of method that you see in Bracknell, that you see in Shaker. But we have to apply it to our 10,000 plus streets, which is a lot when we only have around 1,100, 1,200 officers. So we would need to take everyone to roll up their sleeves and take on a shift. So I am proud to say I would love to see the day that we have a patrol schedule where everybody that has a gun and a badge, that is an officer patrolling our streets, whether it's just one shift. That right there can help because then you can start seeing things, noticing some stuff, and if you're not the one that can do it, you can radio in to gather up a plan. So that type of presence is definitely needed. But I also would ask, definitely for a request to the staff, can we get an actual number of how many tickets have CPD issued so far this year? Make sure that's on the record so we can get that information, because that will let us know if we're out there.
Okay, wait a minute.
I can do
Staff,
that.
please, and the judge, and the chief is getting that information as well, but staff, I'm going to make sure you get that request. Thank you, Councilman.
And then also, I'm big on these partnerships. We have partnerships, but it's not presence. Like I mentioned on September 16th, when it was September 15th, at the wee hours of the night on 55th and Woodland Kinsman intersection, they were held up traffic and was street racing, doing donut, drag racing in the middle of 55th. But then I have CMHA Police Headquarters less than a block away and no police officers there. So it's like, what is this partnership? A partnership that look good for them to do a little bit of work on their grounds, or do they really not have a partnership? Because correct me if I'm wrong, to anyone at the table, I believe there were some laws and changes that allow other different law enforcement agencies to patrol in the city to be able to help with this type of issues. But I never see the presence of anyone else. I don't see them doing anything. But then my question is, where's the county and the sheriff? Only time we hear about the sheriffs in the county patrolling and doing something is if it happened downtown. And that's where our residents are frustrated. That's where I'm frustrated at. They patrol, they act like Cleveland ain't a part of the county. And that's where I'm like, where's the accountability? Where's the actual partnership? What does this memorandum of understanding agreement looks like? And from some studies that I've read and looked up, without some of our memorandums of understanding agreements, if they're not in place, some of these agencies can't do their jobs, such as law enforcement. So if they're worried about consequences or who have fought and they don't want to step in to help us, then why we continue to have these partnerships if we're only getting pennies on the dollar? So that is something that I definitely would like for us to look at. I definitely put a request to the staff to give me the update of the memorandum of understanding agreement with all law enforcement agencies that we have agreements with, so we can definitely look at that, because these negotiations and these agreements, if they're not going to help us in Cleveland and they want to talk about it just countywide, that's unfair to us.
Okay.
So definitely put that request in.
Thank you.
And then, as I just wrap up, just because this is something that's so big to me, because we changed and gave officers 12-hour shifts. So they patrolling more with less staff. I mean, it's like, then we also increased that you can be older to be a police officer to enter into the academy. So now we're talking about seasoned people. I think we need to really explore ways to get things done. So my last question, I would say, additional question rather, how many police officers is in the current police academy, and when are they slated to finish or come out of this upcoming academy?
Director or chief?
So through the chair to Councilman Starr, I'll start with the traffic enforcement. So as far as like the moving violations this year so far, as of last week's information, we issued about 21,740 citations. So those are just those aren't the parking infractions, so those are just moving violations themselves.
A clarification, Mr. Chairman, on the point.
Question.
Could you repeat that,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, to the chief?
Okay.
Is that an annual or is that
That's
That's
first.
this year, so far this year.
Okay.
so far this year? How many?
21,736
21,000 citations.
Thank you.
uniform
Thank you,
traffic
Chief.
tickets.
Councilman Starr?
And to Councilman,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
So currently, we have 2 academy classes that are in. These academy classes are the first that we have that have the older recruits. The one class is slated to graduate in in November. A combined total of the 2 classes is 73. There's 40 candidates in the class that's slated to graduate in November, and the other one will graduate in 2025. We also have a class that we are looking to put in December, and that was part of the expedited hiring event we posted.
So again, 73 right now, but that second class will not come on until the first quarter of next year.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
And to that point, so November, we have 40 that's slated to graduate, and then we have 33 that's slated to graduate in 2025, with December being the date that we're wanting to start another class with the new recruit, right? To the chair.
Through the chair to Councilman Starr, that's correct.
All right, thank you. So, like I said, thank you all for coming, and one of the points that Council President made, we do need to bring the judges and prosecutors to the table and possibly have a hearing. So I would definitely work with you, Chairman,
Yes.
to figure out how do we get them there to be able to get an understanding of how they're doing stuff. Because not often are we dealing with just this street racing. We also dealing with a lot of different crimes that is happening with our juveniles as well.
Yes.
And oftentimes they get caught by Cleveland, and then next thing you know, they get caught 3 or 4 times up until they kill someone. Now we want to lock them up or intervene. Also, within that partnership, we should definitely look from the county standpoint to see what type of services do they have with these kids as well as these young people, because most of the time it starts early, and then the trend shows that, and if you don't correct it early, it's going to be young adults or adults having the same type of crimes will graduate to different type of level of crimes that we're seeing today. So I think we need to have a collective offline conversation to piggyback on how do we attack this. But also, we need to do our part to hold people accountable, because everyone comes and asks us for help and support and for money and for their budget to be passed. And I think we need to be careful on a lot of things, because as the legislative body, we do the legislation, we do the budgeting, we do some oversight, we do the advocacy, we do the appointments, and we do communication.
Yes.
We have all these different things in place. We need to be strategic on what we're doing to make sure everything is done the right way. And I yield, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you for keeping time, Councilman. Appreciate that. Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, committee, for being here. I just have a couple of points. My first point is I want to bring up something that Council President brought to the attention of the drones and also Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
When Chair brought up stating that the drones was the drones was legislated 2 years ago. My question is why haven't any policy has been written from your point of view to get the drones out in the community from all the activities that we've been dealing with in our community, and you are understaffed. Those drones could be in place of doing the job that the police are not able to do the job. So could you clarify that? Because I did get some information from Council President before I presented the question. Thank you.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Gray. Yes, it was 2 years ago that it was approved for drones. At that particular time, that just starts the process. The process entails finding the right platform. As Chief Todd mentioned before, we have to find the right platform that's going to meet the needs of the Division of Police. Then second to that is to put it out for bid to get the appropriate drones. That's a process that takes several months or even longer for us to get the right drones. And there were hiccups in the process where we actually had to rebid the drone. Once that was rebidded, we did have a contract. We did receive the drones. In the process, the Division of Police, they've been working on a draft policy. We want to make sure that we have best practices throughout the United States. Again, to make sure that we have officers that are drone licensed operators. That's a requirement to operate drones. We have those. Coupled with that, we have to make sure that the officers that are going to be operating these drones can't operate this particular drone and that particular platform. And as the chief stated before, they're in the process of being trained for that. Once that is done, we'll have a pilot program in the Division of Police, that is. We'll have a pilot program where we're utilizing the drones. So it's a process. I don't want anyone to think that, we were approved and then we got them and we've been sitting on it. No, it's just it's a process that's entailed to actually get the right drones, train individuals on it, get the right policy in place, and then start the pilot program.
Okay, well, that's a lot of information. However, when you come to the council table and you submit this legislation to be passed, isn't there a process immediately after that to have that process started?
Let me just say this.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
The record. I want to just say this again, because this has been a real issue within the body. We acted expeditiously to pass the legislation. Council members had asked for drones, what we thought would help in these pursuits and high-speed chases within the city to eliminate some of the carnage that we were experiencing. We took whatever action we needed quickly. We heard the legislation in committee, we acted. Goes to the administration. As the director indicated, there was an issue, I guess, with the original bid that went out. And now, what he hasn't said, maybe he will, not only once the general police order is put together, then it has to go to the CPC, which is a whole nother thing in itself for a review.
Yes.
Director?
To the chair, to Councilwoman Gray, yes, it was approved through council. Again, there's still a process after that. Again, it has to go out to bid, and there was a hiccup relative to the original drones that were going to we were going to purchase. We had to go back, reanalyze the platform that we were going to get initially. That changed, and ultimately then the bids went out, and we subsequently received the drones this year. We're in possession of those drones. As stated before, the officers are currently being trained on that particular platform. And as Chief Todd explained, the draft policy is done. Once the training is done, then we'll get the drones up in a pilot program, because the policy itself, the drone policy itself, still has to go to the CPC for their review and approval. And once that's approved through the CPC, it has to then go to the federal monitors for their approval, and ultimately to Judge Oliver for the final approval.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I get on that point, if
Mr. President, you had a point?
if the council lady will allow a point? Okay. So how long would that take? Because we're talking about going to the CPC, then we're talking about going to the federal monitor. What is the timeline for that? And secondly, let's be clear with this council. This city voted for issue 24. And technically, the CPC should be asking some of these questions too. So I hope they're listening, because the CPC should be doing just as much of a deep dive as this body is doing, because this community voted for the CPC to be asking these type of questions too.
Right, to the chair, and I know Chief Todd wants to make comments as well. I'm not quite sure how long their process will take. I can tell you that with my conversations with the command staff, and in particular Chief Todd, we're going to institute a pilot program based on a draft policy. We'll get the drones up, so forth. Again, the only holdup right now is making sure that the officers are trained on the platform. So the drones will be up. We'll see how they work. As the CPC and others look at the policy itself and go through the approval process, I can't give you a timeline through the chair to the council president when that'll be approved, but we're gonna move forward through the pilot program. I'll pass on to Chief Todd now for comment.
Chief, and then Councilman Jones had a point.
Yes, so through the chair to the council president, as the director stated, we are going to move forward sooner than later with the pilot program. You know, the best way to implement a policy is to see what works. So we have drafted, you know, our policy for our members on how our expectations of usage. Before that's finalized, and the program is fully operational, is, you know, we'll work with the CPC on that finalized product. But we're going to move forward with the pilot and the usage of the drones while we're perfecting this policy. And that as soon as that training is done, we're just working with the manufacturer of the drone. As soon as they are able to come to Cleveland and train our members, we'll have those operational, and I'll keep you updated on the timeline.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, you had a point, specific point.
Mr. Chairman, it was the same point the President has laid out. So
Thank you.
I yield, Mr.
Council
Chairman.
Lady.
Thank you for that. Very detailed. Appreciate bringing us up to date. And I just have a chair to the committee. I just want to say that I know that these takeovers are very intense, and it's not only because they come out of state to come to Cleveland. We have takeovers in Cleveland.
That's right.
Locally takeovers at our parks. Ward 1, Ward 4, Ward 9, Ward 10. They are at our parks while our constituents are there having fun, entertaining themselves. Just to say the least, I can say this for Commander Valentino. He has worked with Council Griffin and I in our wards, in 4th District as Ward 1 and as Ward 2. He has been very attentive when it comes to us calling him about takeovers in our community. What he has done, maybe I know Chief Todd is aware of this, and of course Director Drummer. I know what he has done for our 4th District area. He actually have a crew, maybe a sergeant or maybe his lieutenant. He gets them out to come to that particular location of takeovers all the time, and he have cars come out and sit in that area 2 hours or an hour before it even happens, because I have emailed Council President Griffin and Commander Valentino when when a takeover was about to happen on Buckeye, on 117th and Buckeye, and he immediately got a crew out there before it happened. It was, I think it was about maybe 20 motorcycles was out there, and he immediately got the cars out there and he broke it up. And also at the parks, he'll send patrol cars out there 2 or 1 hours ahead of time, and they sit until the park closed, and he makes sure everything is completely safe. So just saying the least, I do commend the officers of doing what they can, even though you guys are understaffed. However, just going back to the drones, I understand the process, but anything that can help this situation, not only out-of-state takeovers, our local takeovers, that's something that need to be addressed as well. But I just commend you of you guys trying to do what you can do. So I yield.
To the chair, Councilwoman Gray, thank you very much. I appreciate the mentioning Commander Valentino and how diligent he is in responding to your needs, as well as Council President Griffin's need relative to some of the issues that happen in the park. And I know he's really responsive. That's why he was selected for that particular role. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you. And the director and the chief understand the drones are a priority for the council. They're a priority, and I
To the chair, we understand.
Okay. Councilman Kelly, and again, thank you, Council Lady, for keeping time. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, to the committee, hey, thank you for being here, folks. Thanks, sister and brother, police officers, for doing what they do. And we always want to make sure this body, that each one of them gets to go home safe to their home and to their families every night. And we understand that this body, that's a lot of difficult things going on with not as many police officers as we need. A lot of the things been touched, but in visibility, which Councilman Jones talked about, is a very big thing. And I know you can't sit here at this table and discuss what you're going to do. That's not what we want to tip off. But a couple things I think we need to do that's been brought up is we definitely, my residents, got a lot of phone calls. They're looking to get, I guess I would call it a pitchfork approach. They're looking to see that we have everybody involved. And that's, the county and the feds and our local police, and then also what Council President Griffin brought up, we really need to get together with the city prosecutors, maybe the county prosecutors, law department, with our police, and whoever we can get as a judge sitting there and have one of these pitchfork approach. What do we need to do? Is there a revised, you can come to the body here. Is there some revised ordinance? Is there a new ordinance that we can come up with? We are willing to do whatever we can do, just as you are. It's very frustrating for our residents right now, and they're frightened, okay? And we want to calm that. I haven't heard anybody berate our sisters and brothers in uniform at all. They just want to know what we can do to get more out there, to get the visibility. I also am a big believer in little things, and I think possibly if we just get some of your people together and focus on whatever the local council and the police and start doing some little things, just as a show. I don't care if you're going to go up and down the street and start ticketing these cars that are on sidewalks, or if you're going to start ticketing people that are loitering in front of stores or threatening people. I'm not exactly sure what we can or can't do, but I really believe that if we start enforcing some of these little things and show of force doing this, that our citizens are going to start believing that more is coming. Many things have been captured. I wrote quite a bit of notes here, but that's about it. We respect everything you do. We want to help, and we're getting the phone calls. And I also, when Commander Schlott was in my ward, now Commander Woods, that poor guy, sorry, he's got my number. I'll call him 1:30 in the morning to meet him out there. Everybody is really trying. This is a difficult situation. But I'd like I said, let's get together, do some sort of little pitchfork approach, focus on maybe one little thing that we can do in mass to show our people. Our people need to know you're out there right now. Thank you.
To the chair, to Councilman Kelly, thank you for those questions and your comments. The Division of Police, we do utilize our partners, as the Chief has stated before, especially with these takeovers. We are assigned to our special operations, where we have our task force officers that work with FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshal Service. So we're utilizing them. We also have partnerships with the State Highway Patrol relative to traffic enforcement and other enforcement. And the things you're mentioning is quality of life issues. We have, at least when I left, we had quality of life details in each of the districts. We're sort of dealing with the things that you're talking about, the parking, folks parking on the sidewalks, in the front lawns, and also folks sitting around drinking in public, and just quality of life things that we get calls about, including traffic enforcement. That's a major thing. I meet with Council President Safety Chair Polensik every week. We meet, and one of the things that he mentions to me is traffic enforcement. Traffic enforcement, it's been mentioned here multiple times, traffic enforcement, and we know the importance of it, and the chief knows the importance of it, and so does the commanders and our traffic unit and the traffic officers in the districts and so forth. So we concentrate on quality of life, the Division of Police, that is, and also part of it is our partnerships with the prosecutors, the city prosecutor as well as the county prosecutor. And relative to the issues with the takeovers, they are on board. The chief prosecutor here, Chief Prosecutor Jordan, as well as O'Malley, they are aware of what's going on. We're working with them, and we're working specifically with Chief Prosecutor Jordan relative to the prosecution, the charging of these individuals once they're charged. So we understand you, and we're working diligently with all our partners.
Councilman?
I
Can I just
thank
add
you.
one
and-
more
Chief, you got a
topic to
comment?
that? I'm sorry. So through the chair to Councilman Kelly, I just want you and all the council members to know the role of the commander is to do just what you're asking for. The district commander's role is to be that liaison with council members and the community to address your concerns. So when you want those details, don't ever hesitate to ask directly for it. If those are things you need in your community, that is the commander's role. It's not just to oversee the men and women there. It's to be that liaison with the Division of Police and the community.
Okay.
They're your person.
Okay.
So please, if there's something you're seeing, concerns of your residents, a detail that you want to see, some enforcement in a certain neighborhood, please work with them, and that is what their role is as commander.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Councilman Kelly?
Through the chair to the chief. Thank you, chief. No, my commander is great. He's soft-spoken, he's diligent, he cares, he listens, he picks up the phone. I've got no problem there with what's going on with the takeovers today. I'm just mentioning it in a broader platform.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Please take a look at this. And like I said, the residents, all of our residents, it is at a boiling point. They're just frustrated that they don't think there's anything that can be done. So I think we need to start showing them what we can do. And once again, if between the body and the committee here, if we can come up with something clever where we can enact some sort of legislation, we're willing to do it. We're looking, just like you, to start this, and our residents are looking for us to come up with something. They're looking to see something on TV. They're looking to see an arrest. Even if you did something broader, whatever little thing might be, hey, this is what we did this week. They want to know we're out there and that we're there for them. They want all the sister and brother officers to be safe and go home as well. And they realize this situation with the takeovers, with guns, and not, they're sympathetic. But now it's passed. They want to see some solutions. No one's pointing fingers. Everybody wants to help to get a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly. Thank you for keeping time. Councilwoman Stephanie House-Jones.
Good morning. Just a question through the chair to the team here. The chief, you started off that talked about some of the ordinances, I believe 433.07 and 08. If you can share with us how many people have actually been arrested or cited by those citations?
Chief, do you happen to know?
I do. So through the Chair to Councilwoman House Jones. In 2024, so far this year, there's been 34 citations for the 43308 or 07. And in 2023, there was 28 citations for that.
Okay. And just through the chair to the chief, so there were those citations for that. Do we know, or do you have the information with those particular cases? Was that the only citation that they had, or were there any other layering of offenses with those cases?
So through the chair to the Councilwoman House, I can say that we only pulled the data for those particular ones from our LERM system. So I didn't look at the individual tickets, so I don't have that, but we can get that for you.
And then as a follow-up, through the chair to the chief, what do we know what the actual outcome resulted in regarding the, I guess, those citations?
So through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones, we did research the city's site to find out the outcomes of those. We found that there were a portion of those that were dismissed in court. There were some convictions, and then there's some we're still trying to locate where those cases fell.
Okay, through the chair to the chief. So this is one of the things that I think I'm going to go back to just fundamentally about, and again, I'm going to go back to 2014. The Ohio Supreme Court issued a report talking about data disconnect, and as you are talking about, being a part of our system, and many times growth opportunity, I will say that, is that it is very difficult to find the information that people want, that people need to actually make informed decisions, to actually work to see where we need to concentrate our efforts so that we can get different results. And we are at a point now where we should know, we have to know this information, right? Because, we talk about, policies. We can't implement or update policies if we don't have the full picture of what is happening. And so I guess I will put forth through the table here on the collection of us is to work together to actually find out what actually happened in these cases, like being explicitly to the T, like for all 34 in the one case and the 28 in that case, what actually happened, especially in the cases where there were dismissals, what were the lessons learned? Do we know what happened? Was it in procedure, or what actually happened? And I don't know if you have that information. I'm not going to even go into that, but hopefully you can understand what I'm saying and being able to present that level of information so that we can actually be reflective to look at our policies, right? I do want to appreciate the law department, shout out Jason in particular, who sent me the information. So I know in one of the cases in the tricks 433.08, where it's the first incident is a misdemeanor of the second degree. So as long as it's in the misdemeanor category, you actually can change policy to make it a first degree misdemeanor, right? Which means that penalty can be, I think, $500 and up to 6 months, in jail for the offense. But understanding, in the prosecutor's office, is there a layering of the charges, and really understanding the story, right? We don't know. Have people, was the individuals who were cited in 2022 or 2023, was it a duplicative? Are those individuals, or were there any repeat offenders? Do you know that question?
So through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones. So as far as the collecting of the data, the one thing that we use now is the open data portal, which we're working with Urban AI to get our information out there so it's more publicly accessible. But when we were looking for outcomes of these cases, we have to do it similar to any citizen. We had to go to the city site and look up each individual case. So once a ticket is completed in our system, it's done. It's not updated with the findings. It's not updated with they were found guilty, or anything like that. So it's out of our control to gather that information, except having to go out there and, do a lot of research. So that's how we got this information. As far as repeat offenders, that is something that we can absolutely evaluate. Looking at the tickets that we're writing and seeing if this is somebody who's repeated behavior that's coming in, we can definitely look at that.
Right.
Council Lady?
Thank you. So, I will put this out as another request to the administration, specifically looking at urban analytics, that team. If it's everybody's responsibility, it's no one's responsibility. And so, in particularly when it is coming to not only creating our policies, but the enforcement of our policies, we may need to go down that journey to see what it will take to have a system, because we're not looking for information except sake. We have to be able to look at what the outcome is, right? And while we have separate systems, we are all interconnected, and we should be able to analyze and receive that information in a very interconnected way. And so urban analytics, that team, let's put a request out to ask, how do we tie in to our prosecutors' offices, the varying different judicial systems, to then know the full story, right? Because again, for the work that people are doing, most people don't think we're doing the work, right? Why would they? We don't share the information. We can't find the information. It takes us a year to get the information, right? So I think this could really help all of us to understand, where there is things that we're doing well. And like I said, the areas that we really need to improve. And furthermore, being able to communicate to the public, this is the result, this is the time, and this is why we need their partnership, and being able to report individuals that we know are just causing havoc and disruption. That's kind of just the biggest thing, because I know people have said a lot of things, but I really wanted to focus on the legislation that we have in front of us, looking at the real penalties for those cases, as you have identified, that people, have gotten dismissed, and really trying to get an understanding of, for the citations that have been put out, how does that compare to all of the reported cases that involve street racing, stunts? So do you have that information of, in 2023 and beginning of 2024, how many, calls or requests for services for those specific acts that we have had reported here in the city of Cleveland?
So through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones, I don't have that data with me. This reflects the actual, what we talked about is the traffic citations. It doesn't talk about the reports that were made or the arsons or the anything else. So that is something that we will work on getting that information for you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put it forward. I think it is vitally important that we also track the actual amount of costs we have and how it is recorded or marked, and then compare that to the citations, then the outcomes, because again, that tells the story of, for, district commanders, all of things. Hopefully you understand where I'm going. So again, that's basically what I would like to share at that moment. And then I guess also, if we could, it's the conversation of, we don't have, again, when we talk about the amount of officers serving in the city of Cleveland, really going and having the conversation to talk about what are our current team members' workload, right? Because again, as I tell people, just for all workers, it's not just for police, you can be there, but you can get different workloads and capacities just on workers in general. And our first responders and police are not any different than that. And so as we continue, and especially as we are preparing for our budget season, it will be helpful for me. I can only talk about for me so that I can have conversations with community members in an intentional and insightful way to talk about workload and capacity and understanding how our current team makeup, what our current workload is, and where there may be, where we're strong at and where we may need to grow in supporting our first responders, understanding that the field, the career of first responders has evolved over years, right, and generations, and we need to be more mindful that policing in 2024 and beyond is not the same as in the early 20th century or in the early 19th century when we started. And I think we need to be very clear about that and understanding what that looks like and what do we anticipate our division of police to look like in the next 10 years. What are the trends seeing? What do we, how do we prepare, how do we prepare our city and citizens to engage, interact, and be in partnership with? So, yeah.
So, through the chair to Councilwoman House Jones, I hear you. When the phrase understaffed is constantly thrown around, I'm challenged by that. It really bothers me. So I think that I agree with what you're saying, that they're basing numbers on past police enforcement. It's how we did our job before. We have technology now, we have analysts now, we have a lot of other factors that exist beyond just the officers who are answering the calls for service. So I hear you. We are evaluating that. And is it about being, so dangerously understaffed? I don't think so. I think we're doing a great job. If we could do more, with more, but we're holding our own and we're managing very well.
Yeah, and then the follow-up through the chair to the chief, again, and that's why I'm really trying to hone in on workload, right? To understand what was in previous history, right? Understanding what the workload was historically and how, for example, technology has positioned our team to be, to deploy differently, to analyze differently, cutting reporting times. I don't know all of those intricacies, but again, I think it would be helpful and insightful for the public in general to understand just the evolution of policing. And as we begin to get into the conversations regarding staffing, that will help. And I think it is vitally important as a leader that we create a pathway of hope and belief in our system, so people will actually be wanting to be a team, to join the team, right? You are much more likely to be attracted to joining a team where you feel like you're going to be supported and that people want you there, versus if you get the negative reviews. It's like going to a restaurant. If you see the star, the place with 4 stars, you're more likely to go to the 4-star place than a 2-star place. And thinking about how our communications as leaders can engender people or get them to be like, that's a place I want to be, that's a place I want to serve, that's a place I want to retire. So I think all of us as leaders have a responsibility to creating the environment and the vibe that the city of Cleveland is a great place to work and serve, versus doomsday and no, this is so horrible and no, you want to be there. Even if you actually believe it. Right? Even if you believe it, sometimes you might not want to say it out loud, right? Give hope, because the words that come out of our mouths can either lift up or tear down. We really need to start working on lifting up if we want to attract the best and the brightest, specifically to work in the city of Cleveland, versus the people that everybody should want, the cream of the cream, and not just those who happens. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Lady. Our closing will be Councilman Jones, and Councilman Jones has promised he's going to be short, okay?
Mr. Chair, I have one other follow-up
Okay,
question.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, I yield to the president.
Mr. President,
Thank you. I would like, if I could, through the chair, to make sure that I understand the timeline. So instead of trying to go through it at the table, can we ask if we can actually get a firm timeline of what actions that took place, like when were the chief and the safety director notified, what actions took place to call people up. I would just like to make sure that we understand the timeline better. So I don't want to try to, unless you could tell me now what time or when did we hear about this first, and then, you know, when do we make sure that we added more people to come in? Trying to understand the timeline better.
To the chair, we'll get that information to you.
Yeah, please, thank you. The other thing that I want to make sure that we reiterate, just as a follow-up, were there any arrests or any apprehensions this week with the cars that came in?
Whoever can answer that question.
So through the chair to the council president, we had citations issued, we had cars that were towed, we had, I believe there was arrests made as well, but they were outside of the actual parameter of the takeover. They were people who were en route. We had juveniles that were in a stolen car. We had another individuals, you know, in the 4th district that were cited and a vehicle was towed. We believe they're all connected. They weren't right in the midst of it. It was traveling to and from. And we're looking to make sure that you have all that information. But we do have people we believe to have been a part of that. It's just verifying that they indeed were a part of it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can get that information, that would be great. The last couple of things I want to make sure is that this happened in any other cities, any other suburban communities, any other surrounding areas, and/or did we notify some of the other suburban communities that this action took place in our city, so that when they potentially headed out of our city on the freeways, was there anything that we did to try to tell people this just happened in our city and this may be coming your way in order to prepare them?
Okay. Who can respond to that?
So through the chair to the council president, we were in communication with all of our partners, and it did touch all of our, you know, it did touch part of Shaker, part of Garfield, part of Euclid as well. So we were in, our officers, our frontline officers were constantly communicating. We were also in constant communication with Cincinnati and Columbus. And we are still in communication with both of those cities as well, because it's, you know, it's people who are based there, and, you know, we're giving them information that we've learned. They're giving us stuff that they know. This conversation is not over.
Okay, thank you. Just a last thing, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Wants to make sure that we understand this. After action report, have we reviewed body cam footage, car cam footage, looking at all of those different tools? And hopefully, hopefully that someone asked the rank and file. Have anybody done any after action report, district by district, or combination of an after action report with the entire rank and file to see what could be done better? Because sometimes you have to ask the players on the field, what kind of tools and what kind of tactics do you think we need in order to address this? And hopefully, I hope to God, nobody got disciplined for doing their job through this process. So was there any after action report? Did we review camera? Have we talked to the rank and file, the guys that were actually involved with this, like the police union and the people on the ground at the time? And then hopefully, please tell me it was no discipline, or is there any potential discipline involved?
Chief?
So through the chair to the council president, I specifically spoke to each supervisor that night at 4:30 in the morning. Each district completed an after action of what they saw, what they felt, what they heard that night before they went home, and sent it directly to me. So I knew what each of them were experiencing.
Okay.
First thing Sunday morning, we had a debriefing with each district commander. All of our deputy chiefs were there. We held a debriefing to talk about what the members were saying and what they were feeling, and to make sure that the message was out there to the constant communication, if there was anything else that they saw for improvements, and to reassure them that we appreciated their hard work. I am not aware of any discipline. There's no discipline-related issues that were brought to my attention. And yes, we are reviewing body camera footage, and that's part of the investigation, just to look at what they captured and what they felt and saw.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the reason I asked that question is because I'm really, really hoping that, as Councilwoman House Jones just said, that we spend this time trying to boost the morale of the people that are on the front lines that are doing this. Because quite frankly, I think part of the challenge that we're dealing with is a morale issue. And I think it's a national tone and tenor, but it's also a local tone and tenor. And we need to encourage, empower our folks to say, if they're doing their job and if they're doing 21st century constitutional policing, that this body, this community, this police force, and this administration will stand behind them doing their job. And I want them to know that. And I do want to say one other thing. Last I checked, we are part of Cuyahoga County. Was the sheriff involved, and did we engage the sheriff? Because I know that county sometimes has challenges deploying the sheriff into these type of settings. And was the sheriff involved in this at all?
Chief?
So through the chair to the council president, they were a part of this on Sunday night, or Saturday night into Sunday morning, and they are also a part of our task force.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, I got to say this in closing. A couple of our employees actually had spouses that were involved in this melee. And I could see the pain on their face when they talked about this. And I'm going to call and offer my words of encouragement. And I'm also going to offer my words of encouragement to this community. This community deserves better. I know that the men and women had a tough job. I know that there were some challenges that headed our way. But we owe it to this community to make sure that we provide the best services, because we oftentimes forget these folks are paying for these services. Not just the citizens, not just the residents, not just the people who live here, but the stakeholders who are putting up their money and their hard-earned savings, and they have to deal with this every day, every single day. That's why I keep saying, I don't want anybody to think this is a one-off. Every single day, we get calls about these kind of takeovers. And to me, I don't think we are doing we're not arresting enough people and keeping people accountable, holding people accountable. So once again, I'm always going to be professional because I respect all of the men and women at this table. I've learned more about policing from you, Chief, and Safety Director Drummond, and Deputy Chief Pillow, and Deputy Chief Morris. Mr. Slott, I haven't worked with you, but I heard wonderful things about you, and I love Ms. Carlson. Ms. Carlson has been great. So this is not a reflection. This is the community projecting their frustration, and business owners saying, Blaine, do something. We got to do something. So I just have a sense of urgency, and this is not about disrespect. This is about getting something done for the people in our community. So thank you, and hopefully we'll get that information. And thank you for holding this hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. My honorable colleagues, Councilman Jones referred his comments to the chief. Just make it very quick. Councilman Jones and Councilwoman House.
Mr. Chairman, too, and I, join my colleague in the same sentiments. Our citizens are pro-police officers. We're not anti-police in our neighborhood. We are excited when we see our police officers come to our meetings, answer our questions. We want to see the engagement. We want to see the visibility. So when you see me sitting here at this table and you see the passion that's on my face, that's a mirror reflection of what the citizens are asking for in the neighborhood. Okay. So even though we have all of these other side pieces, like we have the helicopter, which I think is important, we're talking about the drones, and we're talking about other police tools that can be used. One of the most important too that we have and that we need to continue to talk about here at the table is traffic enforcement. I talked to, Mr. Chairman, Mrs. Measurement, and there's so many requests. We have over 300 streets in the Lee Harbor neighborhood. And just about every single street since I've been there, since we start putting in tables, or what you would better known as speed bumps, the request has been through the roof. And these speed bumps cost us $8,500 each.
Minimum.
Each. And so in our neighborhood, if we want to get speed bumps, if we want to get at least 10, that's $85,000 that the council would have to spend in addition to what the administration is spending, because the citizens are crying out to slow down the traffic. Just about on every single street, they're racing up and down the streets, and they're causing major damage to property and also to life. And so it's really significant and important that we really do something here, get one of these situations where we know that we're becoming a good traffic enforcement piece. And so I really, Mr. Chairman, feel that we should not just have this hearing, just say what we want to say, and then we're back here again, because we talked about this issue of traffic enforcement 4 years ago, 5 years, 6 years ago. And there were council members now and back then felt that if we're to get the attention of the police command and staff to really pay attention to the needs of our citizens, then maybe we need to hold up the legislation. Maybe we should not be sitting here at the table giving you everything you want, and then at the same time not receiving what we need to have in our respective territories. And so I'm the one, Mr. Chairman, and I thank my colleague Gray that talked about our commander. I think we have a good group of folks here right now, but we need to really fundamentally change this narrative, and part of that is getting enforcement in our communities.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
Mr. Chairman. And thank you all for the work that
Council.
you do and the service
Council.
that you continue to provide our citizens every day. Thank you.
Councilwoman House.
Thank you to the chair.
Jones.
Again, this is offering to the citizens, because a lot of people want to know, what could you do? What can I do to be a part of the solution? There are a group of citizens who are beginning to engage and participate in like community court watches. So as we learn about these incidents, these issues happening, because people have been talking about cases get dismissed, things get thrown out. And so if people have been impacted by some of these cases, there is a group that is convening around community court watch where you can come and participate and engage in the system a little bit more to let our judicial system know what the impact has been when the impacts of these car takeovers, street takeovers has taken place. If people want more information, just reach out to my office and I'll be more than happy to connect you with the group that is organizing for the community court watches.
Thank you, Council Lady. We have a stack of legislation here. We have one resident who would like to comment on this issue. We're going to have him up in a moment. But I just want to say this to the director, to the chief. You need to keep us apprised of what action will be taken. I've talked to County Prosecutor O'Malley yesterday in length. He said if the cases are sent to him, he will aggressively prosecute these individuals. I want to say that again. Prosecutor O'Malley said he'll aggressively prosecute these individuals if cases are sent to him. So I'm hoping you're talking to our police prosecutor, because everything would have to go to her first, then a referral. At the end of the day, you've heard the council loud and clear. We want the law laid down in the city of Cleveland. We want the law laid down in the city of Cleveland, because if not, then what it is, it's a blank check to do whatever you want. And that's not acceptable here. Our residents, as the council president said, our residents deserve better. And we all, as members of council, we're receiving the calls. If you were to look at these phone calls and these emails, you would understand how angry people are in this city. Not just Cleveland residents, but visitors to our city who say they're afraid to come in. They're afraid to come into the city. So at the end of the day, you heard us loud and clear. We appreciate the transparency. Chief, I got to say this. That's very important, and I appreciate you being transparent with me and the briefings and to the safety director. So we're going to end it there. We're going to jump right into Mr. Darrell Houston. You have 3 minutes at the table, sir. You wanted to touch on this issue, and as soon as you have a seat here, sir, and somewhere we'll let one of them right at the end here, and you can express your identify who you are, sir. Okay.
Excuse me, my name is Darrell Houston.
Is your mic on, sir? Green.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's green.
Green light on?
It's green.
Green light on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. First of all, I would like to thank you guys for calling this today. This was very enlightening on both sides, as a resident of Cleveland, as a business owner of Cleveland. Some of the things that I heard today, they go back 7 years now, okay? And We haven't addressed these issues whatsoever, period. A lot of you guys have been sitting down here for a long period of time. And to sit here today and hear some of the things I heard from both parties, I have systematically talked to all the higher-ups, including the sheriff's department. I sat 3 hours with them. What they told me on one issue, they were willing to come and do things that the Cleveland police can't do because they are undermanned, right? I believe a question was asked to our new police chief, which I support her wholeheartedly. We're understaffed. It's supposed to be 24 zone cars in 4th District. They are running on 6 cars, maybe 8 cars sometime. I have all the data, okay? It's people in this community that want to see everybody do their jobs, okay? And when we talked about those drones, that should have been dealt with the last administration. A lot of things that we're dealing with right now is inherited from the last administration. Although I do applaud some of the new city council members, but I would applaud you guys to start studying and doing your homework, because all of this is public records. The things that you're asking for, you can research it for yourself, okay? And it's not fair to sit here and tell the community that you're doing things when you're not doing them. I'm asking for public records for a lot of different things, for reasons, to show the pattern of ineffective people in positions of power. Mr. Drummond knows me personally. I've been dealing with this for 17 years, okay? We met at a community meeting, okay? A lot of these officers out here, they know me personally. We talk about the dirt bike guys, right? I know all of those people personally, okay? I suffer from a gunshot wound in my head right now. So that's why I was jittering and everything, because I have a bullet in my head, and some of the things that I'm hearing that our city president said was true, okay? We are fed up. The community is fed up. I carry 2 guns, and I will protect myself at all costs. And we don't feel like there's no police officers out here. But most of these police officers want to go to work. They want to protect their community. It takes a unique individual to put that uniform on. Why? Because they're the first responders to everything that's going on in this community. And they leave their families to protect other people. And it's not fair for city council to sit here, and it's not fair for the police department to tell you that they have the manpower that they don't have, okay? These officers are begging for things. You just started aggressively trying to hire police. That's something that should have took place 8 years ago. You knew 400 police officers were up for retirement. You did nothing. Some of you guys are truly responsible for the things that's happening in this community, and it's unacceptable at this point.
Thank you.
EMS, they should have everything they're supposed to have, right? They don't. The fire department, they should have everything they're supposed to have. They don't. You guys pass a lot of money around to a lot of ineffective programs in this community, and that is a taxpayer's waste at its best, okay?
Thank you, sir.
It's not right for us to be experiencing what we're experiencing. These officers, some of these elected officials, it's not right for certain people to sit here and monopolize this city in the way that they're monopolizing. I have yet to hear anybody say anything about reform. Locking them up is not the key. When you lock those up, you think 2 more is going to come behind them. So what, you're going to keep flooding the system? Because right now, we don't even have beds for the murders that we got downtown right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's not fair to keep sitting here and doing that.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm going to take everything to the auditor. I have it in my phone. I have it. I'm going to exploit what's going on down here because it's time for change on a lot of different departments. You personally have been sitting here for 40 years, sir.
Thank you.
40 years. 40 years.
Yes.
And I wonder why you never moved out this seat. Okay? You have no other aspirations to be nothing else but sit right there. So what I did is I studied you. And I see that you sit on a lot of different panels. And a lot of those panels are money panels. Okay? And I've been watching that. And I'm going to hire 2 investigators out of this state to come in here and exploit everything that you guys are sitting here doing to us.
Thank you, sir.
It's not
Your
fair.
time is up.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
I knew my time would be
Thank
up.
you.
But
Thank
you're
you.
going to give me all my
Thank
time,
you.
sir.
Thank
I
you,
can
sir.
promise you guys that.
Thank you, sir.
I can promise you guys that.
Thank you, sir.
It's not fair to this community
Thank you,
what
sir.
you guys are doing.
Thank you, sir.
Especially you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your opinion. Okay, we have ordinance number 934-2024 as amended by council members Polensek and Griffin by departmental request an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety. You know what, before I call this, let me do this. The administration, you guys, it's 20, you guys need a 10-minute break to hit the restrooms. It's not fair for you to sit here. So it's 20 after. We're going to resume at 12:30. Thank you.
It's the bells. I mean, this is a... How are you? I'm all right.
I'll let them stick around.